Who we got? Lior, see you waving there.
Hi, David.
Carmel, just saw you flash past there for a second. Mark Woodhouse in the house again. Diane Oxborough. Wow, Diane, I haven't heard from you in a long time. Jeff Fairfield again. Talia out in Israel. Roger. Caroline. Hi, Caroline. Somebody called iPhone 4. That's a good name. Julie Kirk. We got iPad 2. So, well, Phil Atkinson just joined. So, welcome everybody. I don't know what it's like in your part of the world, but here it is absolutely swelteringly hot, even without the studio lights being on as well. So, every now and again, you'll have to excuse me when I get my towel out and mop myself down a little bit. My makeup's going to be running. So it's the usual MO. Got the my take on the second step in Think and Grow Rich this week, which is faith. Some interesting things in here. I think it's going to create quite a lot of questions, like last week's did. But if we can hold the questions. Well, actually, what you can do is just put the questions.
David, you're on mute. We can't hear you.
That's interesting because I wasn't on mute before. Somebody muted me. Again, I've been muted on my own bloody masterclass again. So, hi everybody. I think you heard me saying hi to you. I think, and then obviously somebody muted me, but I think I can probably guess who that was. But don't mention Sally's name. So, welcome to episode 2 of our Think and Grow Rich, which is the second step. Which is faith, and there's some really interesting stuff here again. I think, which is going to bring up plenty of questions. And so, if you've got a question that comes up, put the question into the chat, and then Sally's going to correlate all the questions, and then. When I've got through the content for the evening, then Sally will actually tell you, we'll come online and say, okay, now question from so-and-so, and we'll ask you to unmute your microphone at that point in time. So you can ask the question, then if you mute it immediately afterwards, so that I can answer the question. We are, as always, recording this, so you will be sent the recording, and the recording now is in speaker view rather than gallery view. So I think that's working a lot better. So let me just bring up my notes here. So last week. Episode 1, we talked about desire, and particularly the order of desire, as in the be, the do, and the have. So who do you desire to be? What do you desire to do? And what will being and doing that enable you to have? So the thing with be and do is that they require time. So, you can go, okay, this is who I want to be. And very, very quickly, you can be that person. This is what I want to do. Very, very quickly, you can start doing that particular action that person would do. Then there's a time delay between the being and the doing and the having. And so what is it that bridges the gap between the be and the do, and when what you want to have appears? What keeps you going? And this is what I believe Napoleon Hill is talking about here in the idea of faith. Now, then, right on the first page of this particular chapter, there's something which is a little, I believe, is a little unusual. Now, I think the thing we've got to look at is that when this book was written, 1937, though in actual fact, Think and Grow Rich was published in 1937, but actually all of the things in Think and Grow Rich were published in an earlier 7-volume set, which was actually sold door to door. So Think and Grow Rich with everything in one book is 1937, but then the 7-volume set predated that by quite a long time, and it was sold door to door, almost a bit like Encyclopedia Britannica was when I was a kid. And so, probably it started to come out in the late 20s. We're talking about a very different social culture, social environment than we have today. Obviously, America was coming out of the Great Depression. This is one of the things that actually motivated Napoleon Hill to write this work in the first place, was that some of the greatest fortunes in America were actually created during the Great Depression. So he wanted to know, what was it that these people thought differently? So the thing that is I think intriguing, and then if we read between the lines, because of the time it was written, then Napoleon Hill talks about emotionalizing a thought, or what we might call a goal. And emotionalizing a goal or a thought, and says the 3 most powerful emotions are faith, love, and sex. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't personally consider sex to be an emotion. So I think one of the things that Napoleon Hill actually put in the book was to put in some hints and clues for people, but in a way where he couldn't be criticized for it. And this happens in a number of places in the book. In fact, in step 10, then we've got a chapter called The Transmutation of Sexual Energy, which is a whole chapter on where sex fits into the whole goal achievement system. So we can talk about that in more detail probably when we get to step 10. But then he says that faith and love are spiritual emotions, whereas sex is purely physical. And I think there, again, is a little bit of a clue there. So, if you think about it, when he's talking about emotionalizing, he's talking about putting energy into the thought. And, one of the most powerful energies in our world, and probably the entire universe, is sexual energy. Because what is sexual energy and sexual attraction really all about? Well, it's about two people being sexually attracted to each other so that they do the physical act or practice of sex to create a new physical being. But I think what we've got, as in them having a baby, but I think the thing that we've got here, and this is what Napoleon Hill is alluding to, is that whenever two people have sex, it creates a charge of energy. And that energy always creates something, whether that be a physical baby or child, or whatever was on the people's minds at the moment of the peak of the energy. Which someone once told me, a little joke, was the reason why so many ceilings in the UK were painted beige, because the wife would be lying there and we'll be looking at the ceiling going, beige, I think I'll paint the ceiling beige. And then lo and behold, that energy goes into that and it creates a beige ceiling. Funny little joke. So then, and what Napoleon Hill then says is that when you emotionalize a thought, it goes directly into what he calls the subconscious mind, but what I would call the unconscious mind. And then directly from the unconscious mind to what he calls infinite intelligence. So I want to give you my take on what Napoleon Hill meant by infinite intelligence in the context of NLP and Huna, which is obviously what we're actually kind of interpreting this book about, or with, what filter we're interpreting with, and and how we can update it to 2022. So let's move this out of the way for a second. So in Huna, and to be honest, in all of the esoteric traditions, we have the idea of there being three minds. So in NLP, we talk about there being a conscious mind and an unconscious mind, or what Napoleon Hill is calling the subconscious mind. And then also in Huna, we have a third mind, the higher self. So let me just explain a little bit, because I think many of you are familiar with conscious mind, unconscious mind, but you might be less aware of the concept of the higher self. So in Huna, one of the names for the higher self is Al-Makua. And Al-Makua means totally trustworthy guardian parental spirit. So you might have heard of people having a guardian angel, or in the Western mystery tradition, the idea of a holy guardian angel, or in North American Indian tradition, the idea of people having a guardian spirit. Then that would be the highest self. One of the other names for the higher self was Kane, K-A-N-E. Now, Kane is also the name of the creator of the universe. So your higher self and the creator of the universe have the same name. Totally coincidental, I'm sure. So what was it that the Hawaiians wanted us to know by naming our higher self and the creator of the universe the same, is that Kane is the creator of your universe. Oops. And in other systems, the higher self is also referred to as either infinite intelligence or creative intelligence. So I think what we've already got here in this second lesson, or this second secret, is that we formulate a desire with our conscious mind. Our unconscious mind is where our emotions are. Our unconscious mind is where our energy is. And so we formulate this desire. We then, what Napoleon Hill calls, emotionalize it with love, with faith, with sexual energy. And then it's bypassed straight to the higher self or infinite intelligence, for it then to become manifest on the physical plane. And, you know, if you looked at many traditions, actually pretty much all the esoteric traditions on the planet, they do have the idea of the practice of sex magic, of using sexual energy to manifest what it is that you want on the physical plane. Now, I think, and interestingly, in Huna, there is the Huna prayer. And you need to realize that, you know, in ancient times, before the missionaries arrived in Hawaii, before 1820, the purpose of prayer was for exactly what Think and Grow Rich is talking about, was for manifestation on the physical plane. It's only really in the more later day religions that we've got the idea of prayer being a form of worship. So the Huna prayer, or what was called the Ha prayer, was that you built up a surcharge of energy by doing Ha breathing, by doing breathing techniques. I know many of you have already come across Ha breathing. We created a picture of what we wanted to manifest. We give the picture to our unconscious mind, and then instruct our unconscious mind to give the picture and the energy, or what would be called mana in Hawaiian, to our higher self to make it become manifest on the physical plane. Now, I worked out a formula for manifestation. And this is, I think, exactly what Napoleon Hill is talking about here, is that when we manifest something, that is a function of focus. Remember, he was talking last week about the importance of it being a really specific desire of be, do, and have, as in focused, energy, and time. So what that means is the more focused you are and the more energy you have, the less time it takes. The less focus you have and the less energy you have, the more time it takes. I think the interesting thing here as well that he talks about is that your unconscious mind and the universe in general doesn't care or doesn't discriminate, that's probably a better term for it, doesn't discriminate the kind of emotion, because all emotions create energy. So he basically says in here, which is something I think a lot of you have done NLP training with me and timeline therapy training with me before, is that, you know, your unconscious mind will create the thoughts that you emotionalize with negative emotions just as much as the thoughts that you emotionalize with positive emotions. And for a lot of people, their negative emotions are more intense than their positive emotions. I can remember, and I think Andy was there actually, in Hawaii, that's Andy Cooper, when we had this lady come and speak to us called Auntie Martha. And she said the thing that people don't realize is that they bind more closely to them the people they hate than the people they love. Because for most people, the emotion of hatred is more intense than the emotion of love. So therefore, if you hate something, you put more energy behind it quite often than the things that you love. So, even in this book here, Napoleon Hill talks about the importance of eliminating negative emotions from the unconscious mind and replacing them with positive emotions. And he even says a very interesting thing again, is that he says the medical books for centuries are littered with cases of where people committed, I think it was like he said, emotional suicide, as in because of the negative emotions, they basically created conditions that would cause them to die, not realizing that in actual fact, it was almost like suicidal thinking. So with this formula, that's around every single thought that every single person has. But because the majority of people don't have real clarity and specificity and detail in their thinking, i.e. they're not focused, and they don't have a lot of mana or energy, it takes a long time for a thought to become manifest in the physical plane. And for the majority of people, the time between thinking it and it actually happening is so far apart, they don't realize the connection. Because you wouldn't suddenly go like, wow, I can't believe that's just happened. I was only thinking about that 10 years ago. People just don't do that, right? But this is how our mind is a manifester. And it's manifesting whether we are doing it with conscious volition and intention or not. Now, let me just have it. Yeah. So then what he talks about is, well, actually, here's another thing, translating into our NLP speak. And he does actually mention this. Faith in NLP speak is called acting as if. Faith is, this thing has already been manifest. It's just a matter of time. So we act as if it's already occurred. And this is actually what he doesn't use the word acting as if, but he does refer to the fact that what we do is and he uses an interesting word here, we deceive our unconscious mind that we've already achieved it. I prefer the acting as if or pretending, but that creates a very supportive environment for our unconscious mind to manifest what we want. Now, the other thing that he talks about as well is and let me just actually give you to throw off the influence of any unfortunate environment. And if you think about it, and I think this is really important at the moment, because for a lot of people, the environment around us at the moment, like the financial environment, the business environment, is not conducive or as an unfortunate environment that can influence people into going, I can't achieve that goal, I can't do that, I can't be that, I can't have that. Which is when I first put the eShot together for the masterclass, was about realizing that the economy doesn't need to be your economy, or your economy doesn't need to be the economy. And as I say, you know, many people are saying we're heading for a recession, depression, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know, escalating costs, exactly the same as was happening in the US in the 1920s. And this was a thing that actually provoked Napoleon Hill to write the book, was that many of the biggest fortunes in America were created during this very, very, very unfortunate environment. Now, then the final thing here in the puzzle around faith, I think, is what he talks about is that you, by having the desire, having the specific desire, having faith, the thing that we've talked about today, what you literally do is you pluck or extract what it is that you want from what he calls the ether. So let me explain what the ether is. So what we've got is we've got the physical world that we live in. And physical means, you know, it's real and has substance. So this flip chart is real, has substance. And then there is the non-physical, the energetic world. And in many of the systems, they say that what separates the etheric world from the physical world is a veil. And so what we're talking about here is that it's interesting that for me, ether, when I was studying the very, very early days of radio, Clerk Maxwell believed that these electromagnetic waves, which are radio waves, had to travel through something. So it wasn't traveling through a vacuum, it was traveling through what he called the ether. Nikola Tesla also referred to there being this infinite substance in the universe which pervaded everything, which was the ether. Now, if we put an A on the front of that and spelled it that way, then that's the Greek for the spirit element. If you think about spirit, fire, earth, water, and air, all of those elements come out of the spirit element or come out of the ether. In Hawaiian, it's called the Keawe. So what we're actually doing here, when we set a goal, when we emotionalize a thought, we are creating it on the non-physical. We're drawing it out of the ether. And if we hold that thought for long enough, then it would appear in the physical. And if we have enough focus and we have enough energy, the time might actually appear to be instantaneous. So that's my thinking on secret number 2 from Napoleon Hill on faith. So I think there's probably going to be some questions about that. Let's move this down a little bit now. Sally, do we have questions?
Okay, Lior, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
Lior.
I think my question is my question. Oh, let me do this. My question is about the have and be. So what if what you want to be, not have the be, sorry, be and do. What happens if what you want to be and do seems to be unrealistic, like being chief engineer on the Star Trek Enterprise or Superman, Supergirl? But I'm more relating to the Star Trek Enterprise.
Okay. Well, that's kind of presupposing that the Starship Enterprise doesn't really exist. But, you know, the thing is, realistic and unrealistic is to do with beliefs which are in your unconscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you set a goal that your unconscious mind believed was unrealistic, then it wouldn't manifest it for you. So I think a more important one than realistic is achievable.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I don't know if you know, but at the moment they're looking for a new prime minister for the United Kingdom.
Yeah, I know that.
So, you know, if I set a goal of being the next prime minister of the United Kingdom, is that achievable? And the answer to that question is yes, it is. Because unless they change the constitution of the United Kingdom, somebody's going to be doing it. So that is an achievable goal. But then the question is it a realistic goal for me personally? And probably the answer to that question would be no, because I'm not in politics at this point in time. And actually, I don't have the desire to be in politics or to do politics, to have that goal of being Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. So I think you've got to look at both of them together around achievable and physical, achievable and realistic. You know, you said about Supergirl or Superwoman or whatever it may be, and I think one of their abilities was they were able to fly. And then, you know, if you jump out of a window to see whether you can fly or not, you'll very quickly discover that without an airplane, you can't do that physically.
You end up
a school friend of mine, when I used to live in Mansfield, a school friend of mine called Nigel Schofield, for his birthday or his Christmas, he wanted a Superman outfit. And his mum and dad bought him a Superman outfit. And he actually jumped out of his bedroom window to see if it worked, and broke both of his legs as a demonstration that the Superman outfit didn't work. But then, you know, if you know how, and you know, we teach this in Huna, you might not be able to fly in the physical.
Mm-hmm.
You can fly in there.
So it's the same about exploring other world, like being on a Star Trek Enterprise.
Yep. If you know how, you can explore other worlds. And the experience is that you're there. It's just that you haven't gone with your physical body.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I guess I know what I want.
Yeah. I mean, I had that experience. Tad and I were going to be teaching that at Huna. And we decided that the next Huna we were going to teach it. And he said to me, can you do that? And I went, no. I said, can you do it? He goes, no. I said, do you think we should learn how to do it ourselves before we teach it to other people? And we both decided that was a good idea. And then one night I actually did it. My experience was I was flying over this ocean, and then I saw the Sydney Opera House. And I thought, what am I doing here? And then I just suddenly realized Tad was running a practitioner training in Sydney. That's why I was massively excited about this, you know. Because as soon as I achieved it, I was going like, got to tell Tad. And then in an instant, I'm flying over Sydney. So I saw him the week after. I met him for breakfast, and I went, I did it. He said, Dave, I know. I said, how do you know? I said, because I was running a practitioner training in Sydney, and then one of the delegates said, Tad, something's just come into the room. And he said, and I said to him, it's not something, it's Dave, he's astrally projecting. And I go, oh, cool. And then Tad goes, next time, Dave, wear clothes. You got to remember to put your astral clothes on when you go projecting around the place. That's called ecology.
Cool.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thanks. Now I need to.
I had a question, if it's possible.
Yeah, Sally is, I think, Sally, are you managing the?
Yeah. Can you put the question in the group, and then I'll put you on the list.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so Roger, you're up next.
Roger.
I love that story. I'm going to use that story. Being a consultant, I can nick it, can't I?
Yeah.
So,
it's called modeling, Roger. Modeling.
oh, modeling. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we'll give it a flash word. Right, quick question. Now, what is the HUNA and NLP, or what are the HUNA and NLP interpretations of love? You talked about faith and sex. What would their equivalent interpretations be for love?
Well, I was looking at this actually. So it's a good question, because I looked at it and they called faith, love, sex, the three most powerful emotions: faith, love, sex. And I'm going, okay. Well, I wouldn't say sex was an emotion. But then for me, neither is faith really. Faith for me is a belief, and obviously beliefs, have emotion connected to them, depending on therefore how strong the belief is. Love, I would definitely say, is an emotion. In that, you feel, because an emotion for me is something that you feel. So, you go, I feel the love. Yeah. I feel the faith. Not really. I feel the sex. Well, of course you do, but not emotionally. Love, I would say, is, when you love somebody or love something and you feel emotional about it. You might have somebody that you're in love with, which obviously is a very strong emotion. you know, I love my family, I love my friends, and there's definite emotion there too. Equally different thing, but I'd still use these words. I love my hi-fi. I love my guitars. I love my books. And you know, in a way, I suppose that's a little bit like more linked to the last masterclass series we did on perceptions projection, where we're going like, okay, so if you don't perceive somebody as being totally healed, whole, and magnificent, which of course, if you perceive somebody as being totally healed, whole, and magnificent, then you would tend to love them. Then that would be what we'd be talking about. I think the bigger interpretation from an Hawaiian point of view, Huna point of view, would be the notion of aloha, which, you know, people go, aloha means hello. Yes, it does. Aloha means I love you. Yes, it does. But actually, there's a deeper level meaning to the word of aloha, which would I think I'll put the video up into the group, because I did a video on the deeper meanings of aloha, and I think that's probably more the kind of love that Napoleon Hill is talking about here. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, it certainly does. Thanks very much.
Brilliant. Cheers, Roy.
Cheers.
Sally.
Dan, you're up.
Is that Dan?
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Good evening, Dave. Can you hear me all right?
Hi.
Yep.
Yeah, hear you fine.
Magical. All right. So I just wondered if you could share some wisdom around the time aspect in the manifestation. And
Yeah.
have you found that the time decreases when you have more energy behind it? Like if you're sharing it, it's amplified, and lots of people get behind the kind of focus.
Yeah. So, and that would also include manifesting things very quickly that you don't want. If you've got a lot of energy that's coming from negative emotions,
Mm-hmm.
You know, quite often what I find is, until somebody's done timeline therapy or somebody's done some Huna release work, then when they've got negative emotions, they tend to be very intense, and they also tend to be very focused. And then they manifest exactly what it is that they don't want to manifest. Which is where Napoleon Hill in this chapter actually says that because of this idea, the fact that we manifest whatever we're thinking about, with which we've emotionalized, using his words, there's no such thing as good or bad luck. It's all manifestation. It's just we label good luck as when we manifest something that we want, and we label it as bad luck when we manifest something that we don't want.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, most definitely, I've noticed a correlation in this formula, this function. And you know, these are the three arguments, if you like, that are in the formula. So the more focus you've got, the more energy you've got, the less time it takes. The less energy, the less focus, the more time it takes. To the point where, as I mentioned, for a lot of people, the time lag is so great that they don't recognize the relationship between the thought and the thing coming into physical reality.
That's good. That's good. Thank you, Dave.
Yep, brilliant. Thanks, Dan.
Mark Woodhouse, you're up.
Mark, where are? Oh yeah, can see you now.
What was it that I was asking, Sally? Oh,
You asked, your question was, I'm guessing this is very foundation, faith in the process and acting as if upon which timeline therapy is based.
absolutely right. Yeah. So I mean, you know my background, David. So I was thinking of this in terms of process philosophy, and yeah. So you know, just looking at timeline therapy, you know, objectively, in terms of obviously you've had concrete experience, and you know, on a timeline, and then moving up into that etheric zone, and then zipping up and down your timeline, you know, within the context of your own experience, it's almost like astral planing, isn't it?
Yeah. So here's the thing with this is that when we float above our timeline, let me just so you can see the whole flip chart. When we float above our timeline, symbolically we activate in our neurology the neurology of the higher self. So when we're floating above our timeline, we are the creator of our universe. If you think about the creating your future process, then that is a version of the Huna Ha prayer, which is why we do 4 Ha breaths when we're floating above the timeline to energize the goal. That's the reason why that bit's there. And then, of course, so that's where the desire bit comes in for the be and the do. Obviously, then when we put it out on our timeline, we've then got to be that person, act as if. We've got to take the action, which is doing the do, and then acting as if we already have it, which is the faith. So yeah, you can map what Napoleon Hill's talking about in the book, as I say, very allegorically, whereas then in timeline therapy, creating your future process, we've got it as a very, very, very precise process. But the philosophy beyond the two is exactly the same, I believe.
Yeah, brilliant, love it. You're a wizard.
Just don't call me Harry.
Thanks ever so much, David. That was great. Real clarity.
Cheers, mate.
Okay, Bill, I'm not sure I've pronounced that right. B-E-W-A-L, your question is next. Be well. There you go.
Hold on a second. That's not my name. Nasir. Hi, David.
Hey,
Hi.
Nasir.
Nice
How are
to meet
you?
Hi, I'm good, thanks. The reason I asked that question is that obviously Carnegie was very, very successful. And he, I read somewhere or heard somewhere that he actually asked Napoleon to do a bit of research and kind of mentored him for quite a while. So I guess some of those kind of ideas might have come from him. So I wanted to know, David, if you come across the same thing that I'm talking about.
Yes, I've heard the same thing, was that Dale Carnegie kind of hired Napoleon Hill to do research and to interview these very, very successful people. But, you know, on the kind of introduction from Dale Carnegie. So the, and I'll find the link for these 7 smaller books, which then created the one we're talking about here, the Think and Grow Rich, because that's what came out first. And I think it was actually Napoleon Hill that went out and sold them door to door. And you know, I've seen them. They're very rare. But there's 7 books that are around about that kind of thickness from the 1920s. But yes, I certainly have heard the same thing. The link between Napoleon Hill and Dale Carnegie. Yes.
Yeah, thanks.
Sally.
Okay, Tina, you're up.
Hi, David. Thank you so much. This has been really eye-opening. But my question is, during my manifestation journey, I noticed like my sexual energy was going up really high, and I couldn't understand until today.
Right. Okay.
So my question is, how do you tame it? How do you leverage it in a manner that really like supports?
Yeah. So we'll probably look at this in more detail when we get to the transmutation of sexual energy. But if you think about it from a chakra's point of view, the energy of sexual attraction is in the 2nd chakra, which, you know, a lot of people go, well, that's the 2nd chakra, that's all about energy of sexual attraction, which it is. But then if you go, what's the purpose of sexual attraction? The purpose of sexual attraction is to have 2 people have sex to create a new physical being, which would be moving the energy from the 2nd chakra down into the 1st chakra. So what you'd really want to do is not only maintain, but increase the amount of energy that you have in the 2nd chakra, which is what certain tantric sexual practices are all about, of not only maintaining the energy there, but increasing the energy there. So, you know, and this appears in the Bible in a number of places, and this is where the whole idea of, like, you know, the sex is about procreation only. So even to the point where, like, sex that's just purely for pleasure is, you know, devil worship or whatever. I don't think that's actually the original idea. Then there's the idea about, you know, don't cast your seed upon the ground. We've got to think about that symbolically, metaphorically. And also from an energetic point of view, men and women are built differently, which I think probably most of us have worked that out by now. And also from an energetic point of view. So I think we could probably talk about this for the rest of the night. But I think probably what I'll do is I'll go into more detail on that when we get to the 10th step, which is the transmutation of sexual energy. And again, what Napoleon Hill's written here, you know, I read that chapter and I got to the end of the chapter and I went, what the fuck was that all about? And that is actually what it was all about. Because one of the things he'd noticed was that, because all the people that he studied, and again, this is because of the time, were men. And what he found was that all of these men became massively wealthy and rich in the later half of their life, after they'd already, and this is what he said, after they'd already had children. And what he said was that they therefore transmuted the sexual energy that they got to create children to creating money or wealth or business. But like I say, with that energy, we always create something with it. Whether it's a new life or whether it's something else, or whether it just happens to be what you were thinking about at the time. But if we looked at that formula, focus, energy, and time, there is a huge amount of energy built up and released during sex. So, you know, when I taught people in my higher levels of Huna about tantric practices, the ones who actually started practicing the tantric practices also, coincidentally, no, I don't think so, also started to make more money and become more successful. Because for both men and women, and this is not only in heterosexual relationships, you know, then it increases the energy the person has in the second chakra.
It's really amazing, because I don't know if some things seem to be incidental, but they're not really incidental. I've just been invited by a friend to do a tantric massage, and I had never done it before, don't know anything about it, and now you're talking about this. And so it's really interesting. And the gentleman who spoke about manifestation and time, and you spoke about you can manifest bad things with wrong emotions. I've been manifesting wrong things because I think there are subconscious or unconscious negative emotions, and the whole thing is just yeah.
It's a very, very, very powerful creative energy.
Definitely.
Yeah. Sally, do we have?
Thank you.
That's a pleasure. Does that answer your question? Good. Is Sally still there?
Yep, I'm here. Giles Hayes, you're up. What's your question for David?
Okay, well, it wasn't really so much of a question as more of an observation, really, that, basically there's one, I guess it doesn't really matter what belief system we're following with this, or whether it's NLP, Huna, or anything else. One thing that's unclear to me from this meeting is that that most of us are manifesting most of the time. And the real question is whether what we are manifesting, how useful that is to us. And in my case, I know that I've manifested some things that I really don't want in my life. And how to get to a point where you're consistently manifesting with will and intent, so that you're getting the results that you want, rather than the results that you don't want.
Yeah, So I think that, yeah, I absolutely, I totally agree with Giles. I think everybody is manifesting all of the time, whether they're consciously aware of it or not. And then the question then goes, okay, are you manifesting what you want or what you don't want? I think the way to do that is around doing emotional release work, whether that's using something like timeline therapy or Huna or Ku'u techniques to, and this is what Napoleon Hill talks about as well, is eliminating negative emotions from the unconscious mind. And then being able to effectively, you know, as he calls it, emotionalize. He talks about doing affirmations a lot. I think NLP and timeline therapy and Huna have really made affirmations redundant. Is then being able to, you know, put something out into our future timeline if we're doing timeline therapy, or casting a spell if we're doing Huna or some other esoteric practice, and then being able to, you know, hold, I would say hold the space, but Napoleon Hill would probably say, you know, hold the faith long enough, because I think what happens is, you know, and I've gone through this with a number of my clients recently. The universe doesn't work in a linear way. So let's say the person goes, I want to make £120,000 in the next 12 months. And they go, do I believe I can make this happen? Do I believe this will happen? Yes, great. Is the desire there? Yep. And then though they expect it to come in a linear fashion, £10,000 a month or £2,500 a week or £500 a day. And then when it doesn't come in that linear fashion, they lose the faith. They start going, or maybe it's not going to happen. Or I would have thought I'd at least started to see something by now. But that's not how the universe works. That's why I put up that amateur radio video the other day, where I put out a signal on shortwave, and because of the way the atmosphere works, because of the way the propagation works, I can be putting out a perfect signal, and I might not get any contact. That doesn't mean that what I'm doing isn't working. And then, you know, that particular call I put out, it worked on the third call, what's called a CQ. And I just thought that's exactly the way that the universe works. It's exactly the way that nature works, you know. And a lot of people think if they don't get what they want first time, they're not going to get it. And, you know, some people might call that faith. Some people might call it patience. Yeah, that's my take on it. Yeah,
I really resonated. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Charles.
And Grant, you had a comment about the book. So if you can share that with David.
Yeah, hi David.
Hi, Grant.
Yeah, I picked up a copy of The Law of Success from the 19th manuscript lessons. Is that where the book Think and Grow Rich has come from?
Yes. So it was laws of success, and then there were 7 books.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they predate the Think and Grow Rich. You've done good to find them, because they're very rare. I bought them as a Christmas present for a friend of mine years and years and years ago, and I think I paid, even then, I struggled to find them. I think I paid $250 for them.
Yeah, this has been collated into one book.
Ah, okay. Right. Okay. So it's not the because what I wanted to get her for a Christmas present was the the original first edition.
Yeah. I think this was done in 2006, this one.
Yeah, Laws of Success. That's definitely it. So that's good that that's been reprinted.
Yeah, it's been reprinted by BN Publishing. Yeah, bnpublishing.com.
Yeah, I'd actually quite like to get the original old ones again, but
of course,
I really struggle to find the other ones. There was a friend of mine who was so massively into Napoleon Hill and was a big fan of Bob Proctor and all of this kind of stuff. And I thought if I could find those original 7 books, and I actually found them in a religious bookshop in somewhere like the middle of Ohio or something. Yeah, where I eventually found them.
Okay, well, thank you, David.
It's a pleasure.
That is all your questions for tonight, sir.
Great stuff. Brilliant. So we kept it to just over an hour this time. It's going in the right direction. But I thought this would bring up a lot of questions. As soon as I saw the thing about sex being an emotion, I thought, right, okay, get ready. Because I mean, what have we got? What are the things that you don't mention at a dinner party? Money. Well, we could talk about Think and Grow Rich. Sex. Well, there we go. That was included. And then religion, and that was included as well. So really, it was. I think we've done well to get done so quickly, to be honest with you, and also to keep everybody on the line without me offending everybody. So let me have a look. What's the? Let me have a look what the next one is. Oh yeah, so the next one is going to be interesting because the third step is auto-suggestion, which, as I've said, I think now with things like NLP and Huna, etc., that auto-suggestion or affirmations. I don't believe affirmations actually work. Auto-suggestion is basically like self-hypnosis, so that can certainly work. And I think something that's quicker is things like timeline therapy and Huna or Ku'u. So that's what we're doing next week. Same time, same back channel, auto-suggestion. Thumbs up, that was a useful evening. Very great. Good. We shall, I've got a masterclass that I'm doing tomorrow, numerology masterclass. So I won't get to edit the recording until the afternoon. So it'll be a little bit later before the recording goes out than it went out this week. But I will get that done, get it over to Sally, and she'll then get it emailed out to all of you. We'll put a post in the group because I know that quite often our emails go into spam or into junk. So I like to alert people that it's there. And again, if you've got other people that you think would value from this, then please do invite them either to sign up with the email so they can join us next week. But of course, they'll get the two sessions beforehand, and also to join the community. We've just broken the 500 barrier for the community this week, which I'm delighted about. So any further questions, put them in the community so that we can get onto it. Okay. So wherever you are in the world, have a good rest of morning, afternoon, evening, and for those of you in the UK, I hope that The night is a little bit cooler than it was last night.